yet again that to all those candidates and the supporters, if you can please contact the Office of the Commissioner of Police or even the ACP in that region, bring it to his or her attention so that we will ensure that we will have the proper security measures to look after the well-being of you and your supporters. It will also assist in ensuring that there will be no problems pertaining to traffic congestion. And we would like to know the route, the time, the location, and again, as I said, this is to ensure the safety of your supporters. It is not mandatory. We do recall in the local government election, there was a situation where there was a political meeting held, and then there was a motorcade. And even though the police advised certain individuals, what we are trying to do is to make sure there's no clash, there's no conflict. And we need to, if we become the conduit towards ensuring that we understand and know exactly where each party will be having their meetings, it will reduce any concern of a possibility of any conflict that can escalate into something more serious. As it pertains to cottage meetings, likewise, permission is not required from the Commissioner of Police or anyone, especially if it is private property. But again, you need to adhere to the regulations of no more than 25 persons. As it pertains to loudspeakers, there is indeed, under the Summary Offences Act 1102, Section 120, permission is required from the Commissioner of Police, not during the general election campaign. However, if you have the loudspeakers and, for example, you're playing music, you may require certain documents such as COT, and then you also have to look at the EMA regulations. Now, the big one, as it pertains to motorcades, that seems to be the biggest issue. You would be aware that there were certain situations that took place just a few days ago on Saturday, and as the Commissioner of Police, I was forced to shut down both motorcades. UNC persons have called me a PNM. PNM people have called me a UNC. They could call me what they want. Once they don't call me, collect. I will continue to do what is required. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will remain an independent body. We are not here to help any political party get into government or to be removed from government. We are not here to be biased. We are not here to put any pressure on any political party or their supporters. All I'm asking is just for members of the public to understand a little bit of communication with the prime law enforcement agency would assist greatly in ensuring your safety and security as well as that of your supporters. I ask you to please understand this. I cannot use this to influence persons unless it is you really want to listen. But people cannot hold strategic positions and be deliberately breaking the law, causing inconvenience to other persons in the country, and then challenging police officers. The Carnage incident, one political party decided to have a motorcade without the relevant authorization. This backed up traffic for 2 to 3 hours. Certain cars could not move from Lansmeton Road heading, and traffic heading west, as far as West Mall, 2 to 3 miles of traffic at a gridlock, because one candidate, had her supporters giving out jerseys and stopping every single vehicle for a few minutes to speak to them and to give out jerseys. This is what we do not want to members of the public. We need candidates to be responsible and to understand that as much as this is an election campaign, you need to do all that is required to win support. You have to look at the bigger picture. And I'm not going into the fact that if you're a candidate, it means that you want to lead and you want to represent the country, but you can't want to represent the country and cause mass inconvenience, put traffic backed up for miles, and then use the excuse to say there's always traffic every Saturday in Carnage. That is not true. Cars were at standstill. When we put an end to that motorcade, it was cleared within 15 to 20 minutes, which meant that that was the catalyst towards causing traffic congestion. Not everyone wants to be involved in a political meeting or to get a jersey, and you can't inconvenience people because of your role and your function and your goals and your needs. What was again unfortunate is that the music truck was parked there, blasting music. Several persons, I said, they were stopping cars. And this year, we cannot have this election campaign being one that is perceived that this is a lawless society where persons can do what they want whenever they want because they say it is democracy. That is not democracy. Your democratic right cannot supersede or take over the rights of other persons' freedom of movement. And as much as we say that you need to do as much as possible, what was also alarming is that when we were trying to explain to persons, and Mr. Ford will now come in here shortly to explain what is required, I have a candidate taking a receipt, shouting and screaming. I saw shouting, I saw screaming, I saw someone totally out of control. And I was not going to get into any catfight with any candidate if they do not want to listen. Having a receipt because you hired police officers to assist you in a meeting, it is totally different to the several requirements for a music truck. In addition to, even if you have everything and the police see it fit that you're doing something that is going to cause traffic congestion and can actually affect others, we would act. So obviously we ignored what the person had to say, but what made it worse is that coming down in the opposite direction, another political party with a music truck, likewise without the authorization, and dozens of persons waving like it was Carnival Tuesday coming downtown, no police escort, no support, putting their lives at risk, and then we ask the other side, where are your documents? They have none. We cannot be in a situation, I have pleaded with the public of the regulations, the things that are required. We are not doing this to make life difficult for you. We are doing this to help the safety and security of your supporters and other persons in the country. And let us have a general election campaign that is professional, that we can do something and not look like we are totally confused, disorganized, and inconvenience others. I would like the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ford, just to clarify the requirements for motorcades. Mr. Ford.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Yeah. Good afternoon to all present. A motorcade has certain requirements that we need fulfilled so that we'll have what we'll call a smooth transition and to allow the police officers to also respond and allocate the necessary personnel for your safety, for your security, and for the preservation of law and order. In a motorcade, we ask, one, that you give the date, that you give the duration of the motorcade, and for example, 9 a.m. to 12 midday. We ask that, three, you give the route, and very important, we ask, and many persons supply it, the amount of vehicles that will be in that motorcade. Therein lies some of the problems and challenges that we face when we look at the amount of vehicles. And I'll give an example. Party A, B or C, take your pick, says that we are going to have a motorcade and we are having 25 vehicles in that motorcade. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that elections are highly emotional things. We are aware that elections are high-spirited and people are highly motivated to support their parties. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will be the first on record and first on any day to give you that safety and security to support your parties. But when you say that you are having 25 cars in a motorcade along a particular route, and then you see 26, 28, 30, 40, 50, we the police, we will take action because it is about law and order in the midst of you exercising your constitutional right to support your party and vote eventually. When you have this huge amount of persons joining your motorcade, and then you have this throng of persons following, disregarding the COVID-19 regulations and the possibility of being infected with the COVID-19, we have to take action. And that is why earlier o'clock, the Commissioner asks that you communicate with us to tell us where your activities are going to be taking place, especially as they relate to motorcades. There must be a level of control because despite the fact that we are in election season, other persons have to use our roadways. An aspect of motorcade that is now standard is the music truck. The music truck are really goods vehicles and sometimes trailers that are altered to accommodate some additions. Normally, a goods truck, a goods vehicle will have a license for, a driver and two loaders. During the seasons like the election seasons and carnival, they are altered. And that alteration now needs to be regulated. There are about 7 criteria that you need to satisfy so that you can be on the road without us having to impede your progress. 1, the driver of that truck must have an updated driver's permit. If the owner of the truck is not driving, then a letter indicating who the driver is should be furnished. 2, a copy of the relevant certificate of insurance for that truck. 3, an inspection certificate from the last inspection that was done on the relevant truck. 4, the truck should have a permit from the licensing department or licensing authority indicating 2 things. 1, the permission to carry additional or excess persons, and 2, permission to play music or noisy instruments. 5, because of the alterations, you now need a special certificate of insurance for that truck. 6, you must have a noise variation permit from the Environmental Management Authority. And 7, you must have a cut permit where you have paid the necessary license to cut. When you have those documents, you take that bundle and you take it to the office of the Assistant Commissioner Specialized Support, whose office is located at Arangwes at Garden Road in Arangwes. You will be issued, upon inspection of your documents, a permit to have your truck on the road on the days in question. I have a sample of the permit, which I'll present to you all for viewing when we are through, so you see what it looks like. Having gotten that permit, then all you need to have with you are 2 things: your relevant driver's permit and the permit that has been issued by the police service. You have those things and you're on the roadway, we will not hamper your progress. We will be asking you to show them, because very important, ladies and gentlemen, is this. There's an old saying that all is well that ends well. Should something go wrong, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to be on the commissioner's throat to ask the question, why did the police allow this to happen? What did the police do? The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is a proactive organization, and all we are doing is providing safety and security for all the citizens to enjoy their constitutional rights. But there are certain laws, rules, and regulations that have to be observed, and we're just asking all the political parties to observe those rules so that you and your supporters can enjoy what is enshrined in the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. So going back, again, I ask all political leaders and candidates, especially the seasoned campaign members of your party. We know that there are a number of inexperienced candidates, and they may be very excited. There's not a time for us to be emotional or erratic. Please guide them if they are unaware of the requirements that DCP4 just spoke about. Because when you operate as a leader and you start to wild up other supporters, it does not help. Candidates need to be responsible. I think it is a degree of irresponsibility if you back up traffic for 3 hours and you're saying that it is your right because this is an election campaign. This we would not like. To those who claim on that weekend that they had all the documents, they lied. The documents that Mr. Ford spoke about, neither of those 2 political parties had those documents, which meant that I was in the right to do what was required. Maybe I was not in the proper uniform, but as the Commissioner of Police, there would be times where, regardless of where I am, I would operate and act as the Commissioner of Police. So I know my short pants was a very big debating point. It is not my fault that I have very nice legs. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in this general election campaign, I wish to give you the assurance that we are here to help. We are here to support. We are here to secure. And above all, we intend to ensure that we prevent any great degree of inconvenience to members of the public. So as we move on to another topic, before I open questions to the media, as it pertains to bars being opened, well, the closing hours for bars and restaurants, it is 10 p.m. I have now briefed the police officers based on speaking to the Minister of Health and the Minister of National Security. And again, we work on policies. So with immediate effect, starting from tonight, whereas there would have been a degree of flexibility that maybe persons in bars or restaurants, you can serve, or you can take orders from, say, 1 minute to 10. Now, with immediate effect, at 10 p.m., these establishments must be closed, which means that persons who may be running bars, restaurants, you need to know when it is you can make your last order so that persons can complete whatever it is that they have purchased to consume so that they can leave the premises, and that establishment must be closed by 10 p.m. Employees can remain inside the premises if they're involved in cleaning up or whatever, but we ask that all customers can please leave the premises by 10 p.m. I would now like to hand over to Deputy Commissioner of Police Intelligence and Investigation, Mr. Jacob, on a matter as it pertains to the improvement we have with crime scene investigation. In the first 5 months of this year, we've been able to charge more persons for murder than we did for all of last year, and it was not by VAPs. It was based on proper intelligence gathering, restructuring of our crime scene investigative team, the use of technology, assistance of human intelligence, and again, it shows that we're in the right direction. This will play a very big part towards providing a deterrent, ensuring that for criminals to understand that the product of opportunity is being diminished. And I will ask DCP Jacob to elaborate on this, please.
Good afternoon to all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Again, it's a pleasure to address you this afternoon. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, within the last 2 months, we have seen a significant improvement in the detection rate in murders for 2020. In fact, in the first 4.5 months, for 2020,
What? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, in the first 4.5 months for 2020, we had solved, for murders that occurred in this year, we had solved 20 murders. But from the middle of May to date, we have solved 21 murders, showing, in fact, 100% improvement in our detection rate. A few weeks ago, when I spoke to you all, I mentioned the actual implementation of the new approach, investigative approach, or what we are using in relation to dealing with the investigation of murders. This coordinated approach, we took in consideration the 48 hours requirements to ensure that all our technical team, our scientific, and also our technological personnel work together as a team. This has been bringing significant results. The results is working so well that for the year so far we have 47 murders less than last year. We continue with that improvement, and I want to juggle your memory in relation to some of these murders. I think we remember the double murder in the Central Division on the 18th of May, where the couple, Kenneth Macan and his wife, were killed. Also the quadruple murder in Princestown that occurred on the 25th of May. The double murder that occurred in Tobago with Kelson James and Kenwin James in Tobago. This in fact occurred on the 5th of June. Also the kidnapping, which was originally a kidnapping for ransom and resulted in the murder of Kunj Bihari Jaisir, which occurred again on the 4th of June 2020. These are some of the murders that I wish to mention in which this homicide support team played a significant role together with the investigators, and also our legal officers who were directly involved on the ground in assisting with these investigations. In fact, at the end of this press conference, we are having an award ceremony for the officers who have been involved in these investigations within the last 2 months. Therefore, we are looking forward for the officers to continue in the manner in how they are carrying out this investigation. The team approach, as we said, is working as we bring together scientific and the technological aspect and the investigative skills of the officers merge together, and we are getting these positive results. So again, we know that in some instances we got support, a lot of support from the members of the public provided information to support these investigations. So we are looking forward for your further support as we want to ensure that this can be definitely a deterrent for others who wish to commit murders. Again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Before I open the floor for questions to the media, the last topic has to do with the comments made by me as the Commissioner of Police as it pertains to sports being played by young persons in the country. Now, the question popped up as to how does this involve the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? Well, I would explain. There are three aspects that we deal with as it pertains to crime reduction. There's primary crime reduction, which involves law enforcement, hard targeting, arrests, roadblocks, intelligence gathering, operations, and that is the hard type of policing. Tertiary has to do with the criminal justice system. Secondary crime prevention is a very critical element, because the better you have with secondary crime prevention, it would minimize the need for primary crime prevention. Secondary crime prevention has to do with young persons trying to utilize their energies in the right manner to divert them away from a life of crime. That is how important secondary crime prevention is. I am in the transformation of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. What I am doing heavily is to push that element of secondary crime prevention. As I said, not by the fist, but by a handshake, by getting the police service to work in communities, work with young persons, and try to get them to utilize their energies in the right manner. Sport is a critical element to change any young boy or girl into an excellent young man or woman. Sport provides the character trait that can turn persons, and not just in playing sport, but in life. Through sport, and then we can look at football, you get the character traits of discipline, uniformity, leadership, tactics, punctuality, never giving up, strategy. And all of those things require a lot of hard work. But there are young people who want to do this. Because of the situation we have now and the concerns being made, what we have is tens of thousands of young men and women in this country. They have been boxed up, cramped up for months. And we can understand the situation then. But they have now been caught up in video games, Facebook, television, and they are burning out there. Now, we can always in life, everything is risk. But as my grandmother said, there's a situation we have here where the candle can cost more than the funeral. If I'm in a situation where tens of thousands of young persons are being cramped up, frustrated, and being told not to go out, not to run, not to exercise, apart from it affecting their health, it can actually turn them now to become more frustrated and to turn their energies in the wrong manner, which will now force me to get back into more primary crime prevention, which is to deal with young persons who may become so frustrated they've used their energies in the wrong manner. We have made several attempts to contact the CMO. I don't know whether it is refused or failed. They have failed to reply. Because what we would have done is that, again, I do immense research. And around the world it is shown. I have a report that someone from the Ministry of Health, I really hope it is not true, she has stated that persons from 12 to 21 should not play team sports. Now, the interesting part of this is that we also have information worldwide that persons under 25 are at least at risk towards the COVID pandemic. A young person who's 16 or 17 is probably, at that time, because of their fitness, it makes them less likelihood for them, especially when playing football, to 4 80-year-old men playing bingo. So when are we going to draw the line to say that we should, because of caution, we're going to stop all persons over 80 from being involved? Why not say that, why deal with sport to shut down, but not 200 young persons in a cinema with the air just circulating, or people in a water park. What it is with sport. And if the fact of the matter is that sport, as I said, it can play a very big part towards getting young persons to burn their energies. If the CMO was willing to meet with me, I would have explained to the CMO that in contrast to what may be perceived, right now there are many young persons that are actually playing sports out there. The comments that are being made, it has confused the life out of many persons. Because, for example, the first 11 football teams in preparation for the secondary schools league, you're wondering, do the coaches then say, well, is it that persons only over 18 must train with the first 11 teams and under 18 must not train? All of the different schools, the under 14, under 16, under 18, they're all training. So is it that we are stating that training of sport, if you play sport and you train, it's okay, but if you take part in a tournament, it will be a problem? Just to clarify to those persons who do not understand sport management, it is just the opposite. If you take part in a football game at Mandela Park, 25 persons could be huddled in one. If you have a proper structured tournament, it greatly will minimize the risk of someone being affected. Because unlike a training scenario, which is being approved and allowed and not being told by anyone that you should not do it, but you could do it for a tournament, as it pertains to the Commissioner's Cup, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Commissioner's Cup, this was a situation we were able to get thousands of young men and women to be able to participate in sport. And it assisted not just in the individual, but also communities working together, different places, different units, different persons in different streets. And that is what we need, to try to circle the wagons and for us to get back on track. So with the Commissioner's Cup, we have a number of different things that we will do to ensure and minimize the risk factor. And that will involve making sure that persons will be tested, checking their temperature, making sure that there's no huddling, that snacks will not be distributed. We will ask that no spectators will attend, and that the games will be an hour apart. So when one game will be completed, those teams will leave for the other game to take place. And this is so important, as I stated, towards getting young persons away from a life of crime, towards utilizing their energies in the right manner. And you cannot tell me that a 17 or an 18-year-old playing a sport is going to put them at risk. But it is you're not complaining if they go to a water park or if they go to a cinema or if they actually train together. I do not understand. I ask somebody to bring it to my attention, because I've been involved in sports at national, international level for decades, and it really does not make any sense. As I stated, with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Commissioner's Cup, we have a number of different things that will prevent what is happening now with teams training in sport. Because by it being a tournament, it is structured and it will minimize the possibility. But everything in life is a risk factor. If you use the risk factor, there is a 1 million% chance that someone could be affected. Well, then why under 18? So a 17-year-old, somebody who's 17 and 11 months, there's a risk for him. But if he's 18 years and 1 month, he can. Then there are national players who are under 18 that are also taking part in sport. So for those persons, we love to criticize, we love to condemn. What I'm asking for is some degree of dialogue with the CMO, but they have refused to communicate with the police service. I do not work on emotion. I do not work on hearsay. I do not work on gossip. I work on facts. I work on logic. I work on data. There is no law that has prevented it. I have spoken to the Minister of Health and the Minister of National Security, and we will do all that is required. Because again, the concept of this Commissioner's Cup is also going to assist even our national football development, where this can provide an opportunity for young persons to be seen and be given an opportunity to actually be targeted by possible scouts and possible national coaches at the national senior level, as well as the under 20 and under 18. And also in the hope that we can provide an opportunity for some of these young men to be able to get to England, where they can get a scholarship and possibly have an opportunity to get an international contract. So the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, in contrast to what persons believe, it is not just about the tough primary crime prevention policing. The concept of police officers being involved and working with young persons in the element of sport is very critical. And at this time, there must be a degree that young persons want a sense to get back to a degree of saying, listen, it's time for us to get out there. Enough of the Facebook and the television and the video games. We need our young persons out there to exercise. And we can do it in an avenue to ensure that it's not going to affect their health. With this, I now open the floor to the media.
Hello, good morning. My name is Carl Bridgel. I'm from the Newsday. First of all, to start with The first points that you raised about the motorcades and the campaigning, can you please explain or at least elaborate what exactly are the actions you can take against people who don't adhere to these regulations? Can you charge them? Can you fine them? Can you jail them? Like, what can you do?
Again, the first thing what we have understood is that persons are not deliberately doing this to break the law. It is based on their lack of understanding the law. Some of them, as I stated, they are new persons in politics. They are candidates who are very inexperienced. And again, sometimes persons can get emotional. I ask persons to please, especially the seasoned campaign members of political parties, brief your candidates, explain to them that the police, we are not here to be involved in any catfight with any candidate. We are here to help. And what we would do, as I stated, unless persons deliberately have an intent to break the law, that is when we will get involved. But on most occasions, what we have seen is based on their lack of understanding. We do hope that based on this media conference, all candidates and organizers of political parties will now be aware of the regulations, the requirements, and it will now minimize the possibility of what you spoke about. And if it would happen, on most occasions, what we will just do is to shut you down, rather than be involved in getting... This is not a time for the police to be rushing in there, charging and arresting people, because the police service, we really do not want to get into this situation of which political party we support or which we hate. This country, we love that. It's either you're red or you're yellow or you're whatever color it is. We are an independent body, and we are not going to get involved in any situation where persons are going to try to align the police service. That situation in Carnage, it was just that by the grace of God that I was fortunate enough that both political parties were shut down. If at any time one political party was shut down, you would have automatically heard that the police service is either red or yellow. Thankfully, it showed that we are neither.
All right. Well, even with the COVID, the ordinance, the public health ordinance, about 25 people gathering and all that, what is the punitive measure, if any, for people who don't adhere to that?
Again, that happens more so we have seen it in walkabouts, which is why we ask the public now, the campaign organizers, bring it to our attention. Let us know the meetings that you have so that we can advise you. Try to avoid this street because this party has already agreed to walk on this street, because you get 2 or 3 political parties all deciding to do a walkabout at the same time, at the same place. What may turn into 25 can now become 75. As it pertains to their numbers, it is very difficult for candidates to be able to lock down and say, listen, you have to stop at, I have to stop at 25. Because if they are 26, who's going to be the one person we are going to pull out of the group? And that it makes it very difficult. We would have a great degree of flexibility. I give you that assurance. The police, we do not intend to be very hard and fast. We understand the situation. If it gets totally out of control and we see hundreds of persons, then we need to start, then we will get involved. And that is where I ask for a degree of maturity by all candidates, by all political parties. Help us as best as possible so we will not have to flex our muscles.
Yeah, so what will you do though? So just break it up if it's too big?
We would, if it is, we have to. If it is, again, no, people are being very technical on this. You could have a walkabout with 25 and then there's a 50-meter space and another 25 would be walking along. So there's a degree of flexibility. If it gets totally out of hand, and it cannot be controlled even by the candidates, we can take action such as to ask persons to disperse because of unlawful assembly and the breach of the public health regulations. Okay,
and with regards to this new murder detection policy or program you have, it seems as if you solved 41 murders out of the 267 in the country. Can you elaborate then what types of murders have been solved? Is it that you've been able to solve certain kinds of murders better than others, and what is the reason for that? What is the criteria for this? How how else do you gauge the effectiveness? I mean, yes, 41 murders out of 267 is like less than 20%. How do you justify this low, effect? It seems to be a low rate, despite, you claim it's successful.
What would you consider a high rate?
Well, 100, obviously, but I don't know. You can tell me. I'm asking you. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you to clarify. 18% still seems low to me.
And that is why it is sometimes I ask people, please, if we could just do a little bit of research internationally. Chicago is one of the cities that you can see aligned with Trinidad and Tobago as it pertains, because there'll be a problem with gang-related activity. There was a few weekends ago, there was 63 shootings in Chicago, and only one was they were able to pinpoint. So civilians, citizens who sit back, it's only 100%. Those things only work in the Starsky and Hutch television shows when every single weekend some of the murder is solved. When you have a situation known as gang-related shootings, there's the main aspect to deal with crime reduction is known as human intelligence. Because there's no such thing as the perfect crime. Everyone would have seen something, everyone would have known something. I welcome the fact of what took place in the Mover shooting, where persons were able to get their phones, get recordings, and bring forward. This we welcome. But this should be done for all shootings, not just when police are involved. But again, as I spoke about Chicago, when it comes to gang-related shootings, persons based on being affiliated with the criminals, being sympathetic to them, or based on fear factor, being intimidated, they would not see anything. So when you try to align it to the police, how can the police solve a crime if somebody shoots somebody 2 o'clock in the morning in a dark street and no one says or sees anything? There's no crime solving there. And the reason I'm speaking about it is that I have worked with international agencies and experts around the world, and I can tell you. So what happens is that if there's a drive-by shooting 2 o'clock in the morning, there are no cameras, there are no witnesses, and there's no DNA or any type of evidence on the crime scene. There's nothing that the police can do. There's very little the police can do. What we are speaking about is trying to use the concept now of proper testing, from DNA testing, crime scene investigation. Someone being killed in a room where you have a wealth of evidence that you can explore and examine and extract is different. It is different to the majority of the shootings you have in this country, which is a gang-related shooting. So until we get the public to buy into the fact that if you see something, say something, don't just record and send forward if a police officer is involved in the shooting, but anyone, because all lives do matter, especially the 538 that were killed last year. They were not killed by police officers. So if it is we want to increase it, and sometimes people, they see the glass half empty. So what we have just shown is that we have solved more murders this year in 5 months than all of last year. And we're still questioning. Well, we want to get it improved. I have just given you the answer.
All right. So it's good that you brought up several things there. The first thing is, you didn't get the initial question, which was, oh God, what was the initial? The types of murders that have been solved.
You'll answer that one.
Yeah, so the types of murders. And then in terms of the investigations and all that. Can you answer the types of questions? I'm sorry about that.
Yes, in addition to what the Commissioner mentioned, in fact, there were 59 murders solved so far this year.
Okay.
But 19 were matters that occurred last year and the year before.
All right. Well, that was actually the next question.
I'm indicating to you that murder investigations tend to take a while, because sometimes you have to depend on the scientific evidence, sometimes which will take a while to be processed. So you will find that some of the murders that occurred in the first 6 months of this year may be solved by September. So what we are indicating to you that we are improving significantly, and some of the murders that were solved, I mentioned some, and I call some of the most difficult murders, like the quadruple murder that occurred in Princestown. I talk about the double murder that occurred in Tobago. I talk about the Kunj Bihari murder, which was kidnapping for ransom and murder, where the body was buried in a cesspit and covered with 4 inches of concrete. These are the type of murders that I'm referring to. I'm not referring to the basic domestic violence murders when we are aware who committed them. I call up all the difficult murders that require certain high level of investigative skills and technology to assist in the solving of those murders.
All right, so how would that, what would that be classified as then? Like, what sort of murders? So you have domestic dispute, gang-related activities. What are these, like, unsolved murders that...
No, some of these are gang-related murders. Some of these are dealing with revenge, retaliation, right? Drug-related murders. These are the murders that I refer to.
Okay.
But in between, there were in fact murders that were solved that were linked to domestic related.
Okay, and well, then you kind of touched on it then. So how many of these were brought over murders then? And are you applying these new techniques to old murders from like previous years?
On the last occasion, I mentioned our cold case unit that we are working with the cold case unit. And that cold case unit, they are in fact doing investigation on murders that occurred months ago and years ago. They were, in fact, as I mentioned, for 19 murders that were solved from the previous years. Mm-hmm. And that is in combination with the cold case unit and the investigators working together. So, as I said, no murder is closed. So the next time I appear here in the next month or so, I might be talking about some additional murders that solved from the previous years and from earlier part of this year. Okay,
great. So can you just clarify though, what do you consider solved? Is it that after they go to court and get charged and arrested and sentenced or whatever, or is it just that you have used your evidence?
We are talking about murders that persons were recently charged and the matters are pending before the court.
Okay.
We are not dealing with the question of matters that are completed in the court with convictions.
Okay, so that's how you clarify, that's how you classify a solved murder. Okay. Do you want to ask your question? Because I have others.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon to everyone in the panel. Marie Fletcher, Trinidad Express. I just have 3 short questions. Yes, both The Guardian and The Express yesterday spoke about the contents of a police investigation into live sport. Will you be launching, and this is for the Commissioner, will you be launching an investigation into how the contents of this report was leaked?
Well, the fact of the matter is that everyone knew about live sport. The live sport, what was the other one? EMBD. This has been going on for the last 6 years. I think everyone has been aware from the actions, the statements, that was live sport and also EMBD. There's absolutely nothing in that, in what was seen, because I looked at it, there was nothing that would affect the investigation, because what we have done is we have kept all of these investigations airtight. There's a lot that we know that we will not bring to the attention of the public. Only if and when something comes forward that whether it is that a case may be closed or arrest would take place, that we will then make comments to the public. I have stated and I have given the assurance that I intend to ensure that all gates will be closed one way or the other. We did it with the day of total policing, email gate, the plant light substance, situation with Mr. Nelson, Calabar Foundation. I intend to do the same both with live sport, EMBD. There's also AV drilling. There are a few other matters involving other government officials and previous government officials. But what we have done, that we've been able to move so fast on some of these matters, is ensuring that degree of confidentiality. So there'll be a number of things that we are doing, working closely with our UK counterparts that I have hired personally, because some of these cases, it was going on for far too long. So now what we are doing is ensuring that because of that degree of confidentiality, it has prevented any leak. So what you have seen is actually someone actually brought out something pertaining to statements made by the present Minister of National Security a few years ago. So when this was a civil matter. So what we have here is in public domain. There's a lot that I have in my back pocket, fully aware of, and I am working closely with the relevant agencies, whether it be the ACIB, the FIB, the Fraud Department, working with our international counterparts, as well as the Office of the DPP, to ensure that there will be that this will be dealt with in a very professional but confidential manner.
Okay, thanks. I had a question. Has the ACP actuals file been sent to the DPP office, and if not, why?
ACP actuals, I think I mentioned that already. The fact of the matter is that there's an investigation that is ongoing by the PCA. And that investigation is ongoing. As soon as that information comes down, they do their final recommendation, they bring it to my attention, I will then know what action is to be taken.
Okay, my final question. Last Wednesday, you spoke about a letter written by ACP Hackshaw to Mr. Munilal as being null and void, and thereby you rescinded it. Has this been communicated to Mr. Munilal's attorney?
No, I do not need to. I communicated with the public, and I brought it to the attention of the public that I'm not going to use the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service as a tool to clear or to target any citizen of this country, unless, of course, that an investigation has been completed and we can see no wrongdoing, or that there's enough evidence that we have that can substantiate and warrant an arrest and or charge. So I do not need to pass that on to anyone. The fact of the matter is, as the Commissioner of Police, I am not going to have the police service used as any tool one way or the other. And as I said, this does not in any way state that an individual is a person of interest or is to be arrested or not. It is just that it is inappropriate for us to have letters sent to anyone to state that you're not involved. Because, as I said, a Commissioner of Police may not even be involved, may not be aware that someone is being investigated. I have over 50-odd agencies, and someone may very well be investigated in fraud, cyber, child protection unit, human trafficking, that I'm not aware of. So a Commissioner of Police cannot and should not be writing any letter to actually clear someone of wrongdoing.
All right, Commissioner, just to go back to the EMDB and the live sport investigations, can you just remind me when those investigations were open, and can you just elaborate a little bit about what stage they're at? I mean, I think one of the reports yesterday said arrests are imminent. What is imminent?
Only the person who made that report can actually state that. I am not in any position to make any statement to allude that someone is to be arrested or not, or will not be arrested. What I can state is that we are doing a lot. What we have done in the last, with live sport in the last 6 months, we've been able to do much more than we did in the last 6 years. And it is because of, again, through the restructuring of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, now we have a DCP for intelligence and investigation. As it pertains to EMBD, likewise, I realized that this was something that was a very difficult case, similar to the Clico matter. And with that, I hired international experts from the United Kingdom dealing with finances and so forth. They've proven to be very effective. They've done a lot. And what we are starting to do is start looking to pick low-hanging fruit. Sometimes, again, in some cases, we spend years waiting and looking for the whole thing. I intend to find a way to close all gates one way or the other.
All right, and I just want to go back to the incident in Mova last month, the protest actions. Can you first give me any sort of update on the investigations on the police killings? Is this one of the murders? Is this one of the incidents that the new unit is looking into? But regardless, can you give me some sort of update? Are you satisfied with the pace that this is happening? I mean, obviously the public would want some sort of resolution. And along with that, has the impact of that protest has that had any sort of attendant impact on the morale of police officers? Clearly thinking that the public probably doesn't support them, perhaps. And along with that, has the police made any kind of headway into the connected incident that you announced that this was a plot to destabilize the country? So, can you just kind of give me an update on that situation? Yeah, the shootings and the following protest actions.
The shooting in Mova, we saw no relationship pertaining to the plot to destabilize the country. The shootings in Mova, so there's nothing that linked that. There's nothing that we had to link the shootings in Mova of the 3 persons with the police officer who was killed earlier that day. So let us not mix them up. So there was nothing that there was a link pertaining to that. As it pertains to the morale of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, which is why it was a very difficult period for me. I have to ensure that we have citizens who are concerned, but at the same time, I have to ensure that I continue to lift the morale of the police service, not throw my police officers under the bus, and do what is required to ensure that my police officers understand that I will stay there, I will defend them, I will protect them if required. If it is that it is not required and police officers breach regulations, they break the law, I stated, I made the first comment. I can't recall a police commissioner stating that any police officer who is charged for any violent crime should be fired immediately from the police service. Persons criticized me for it, but hypocritically, they saw no problem if police officers in Minneapolis they were charged for murder, they should be fired. Why it is it can be done in North America and not be done here in Trinidad and Tobago? Because Gary has said something, let me just be different. So I'll be the first to do what is required to clean up the police service from, again, as I stated, we intend to acquire 1,000 body cameras, make it mandatory for police officers, have disciplinary action taken if it is not turned on whilst they're on patrols, the use of polygraph testing, having drug testing being done, using intelligence to pinpoint certain police officers, have action taken on police officers to have them suspended and even fired, especially if charged for violent crime. But in the same manner, we cannot throw a broad brush on the whole police service if it is that we believe that the actions of one or two may be one that is what conduct where they may have abused their authority, and that is not. That authority has nothing to do with this situation in the Mover shooting. My police officers are highly motivated. You'd have seen it from how they operated during Christmas. They went straight into the carnival, providing security for this country for carnival, straight into the COVID period, straight into a situation where persons tried to destabilize the country, and we did not require the support of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service stood strong. They were proud. They did what was required to ensure that democracy was maintained, to prevent what took place 30 years ago. Yes, there are persons who intend to destabilize the country. They had an agenda then. Anyone, again, we had threats of persons planning to shoot at police officers, kill police officers. Anyone who has a deliberate attempt to try to destabilize the country, destroy our democracy, and to shoot at any of my police officers, I would see that as an act of war, and we would respond accordingly.
All right, so when you say the plot to destabilize the country, then, so was it, I mean, what was this plot? Was it treason, like a coup d'etat? Or?
No, it'll be inappropriate for me to give you any more than what we said. But all it takes, Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could have seen what took place on that day.
Okay.
Persons decided to, let me finish, please. Persons decided to destroy property, block roads, and they were coming into Port-of-Spain. That would have been the catalyst towards damaging property, going into buildings, looting, stealing, putting damage to other persons. And we heard about the threats to police officers, where they were shooting at police officers. Because of the training, the technology, the organizational structure, the leadership skill by my police officers, by them working closely, the high degree of training, as I said, the morale, we were able to suppress those individuals and to put them in a position where they were not able to do what it is that was planned.
Okay, well, to go back to the shooting incident, the alleged police killing, what is the status of that investigation? And are you satisfied with the pace of that investigation? Is it taking too long? Is it good? Like, is it going well? What is the status of that?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, I'm trying to ask you.
It's a good investigation.
Well, good is like, I mean, good as in, everything's happening according to how it needs to happen.
No, I understand. Again, I give the assurance to the public that I will ensure that there will be no cover-up, but in the same manner, I am not, as I said a few weeks ago, that is why 2,000 years later, no one named the child Pontius Pilate. I am not going to turn a blind eye and just throw anybody under the bus to protect myself. That is not what leadership is about. So I do not try to micromanage or monitor investigations. What I do is to provide the logistic and the support required. But at the same time, we must be aware that there's an investigation ongoing by the PCA. And that investigation is an independent body that is completing that investigation. We are providing them with all that is required. And I would keep monitoring the situation, but I'm not going to rush into a situation and demand an immediate closure of an investigation just because I know the public wants to get a response.
All right, so I have just two very quick questions. I'll tell you it one time. The first is, can you, I believe 72 people were charged with during those protests, were arrested during those protests. Can you tell me their charges? Were they released? Are any of them still, arrested? And let me just quickly with this one, can you give me an update on the reports that a journalist, one of my colleagues actually, was intimidated for a story he wrote about police, a possible link between police killings. Okay.
Well, Mr. Jacob could clarify it, but we have actually dealt with most of those concerns. Mr. Jacob, you want to take the last one first?
Yeah, well, we had an investigative team investigating that matter, and we came to a conclusion that in fact, there was in fact a perception that certain things was taking place, but in fact, it was not in fact so, right? He will be in fact notified, right, that the whole idea that there was some actual threat against him, right? We came to the conclusion in the investigation that is not so from the report from the investigator. So that is the stage that we reach.
And we have enough evidence and I actually briefed the individual already. Okay, and Mr. Ford?
Yes. And concerning the question you asked about the persons that were charged, persons were charged, and like citizens of the country, they were taken to court. They were allowed bail. We didn't object to bail, really. They were allowed bail. Matters have been postponed for later this month and some for next month.
So what are they charged for?
We had breach of the code regulations. We had malicious damage. We had charges like those that they were charged for.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you.
Okay,
Welcome.
that's it. Members of media, pleasant good afternoon.
And if they're interested in seeing the sample of the permit,